Welcome to episode 96 of On My Studio Table. We're heading to the 100th episode, and I have an idea for something very special to do for that episode, just to thank you for listening, watching and subscribing to my channel. So more about that soon. I hope you enjoyed the photos that I took from our mini holiday last weekend. We went to Bicheno on the east coast of Tasmania, which is a beautiful spot. And the weather was fine enough, although very windy, to go to the blowhole. This is a beautiful natural feature where the waves come in and through a crevice in the rocks blow up into the air, a bit like a geyser does in some areas in the United States, such as in one of the national parks. And it's just amazing. Somebody said that it's about every 10th wave. I didn't actually count that, but there were some that were small but still beautiful, and then there was one very big one, and I was so pleased I got the footage of it on video. I also, as I said, took these photos, and the sky was absolutely dramatic. It was beautiful weather, but the clouds looked very threatening. We did have some rain, and we did have a bit of a storm at one point, but nothing that lasted for very long. So we could stay there for quite a long time, and when we got tired of standing around, we just sat on some convenient rocks, as you would have seen in the photo of Ian. We had a lovely time away. We met up with a friend we hadn't seen for quite a while. We went out for dinner. Ian got me some lovely flowers for my birthday, and we just had a really, really lovely and relaxing time. I'm going to share the video of the biggest performance at the blowhole at the end of this video, so I hope you enjoy that. Ian's standing not too far from it, but far enough not to get wet. So you'll see the scale of it and the huge rock that there is next to it as well. I have a lot to share with you today. It's been the first week of Sketchbook Revival, and it's been absolutely inspiring. I enrolled as a student because it's free until the 28th of April, and I wanted to experience what those who enroll experience, and also to have a look at how some of the tutors have presented their tutorials. And I can learn from that also when I present mine. Mine is due out on the 16th of April, so I hope if you get a chance that you'll have a look at it and that it will give you some inspiration. There's also a free gift which I include as part of my appearance, I guess you could say, on Sketchbook Revival. And if you join as a VIP, you will get another gift. I'm going to share with you some of the exercises I did as a student at Sketchbook Revival. I've also been playing around with another block, collaging the background with some cloth, as I have been doing lately, and featuring my latest block ready for embroidery. We will be drawing out the word for the week as usual, and I hope that it inspires you also. Behind me I have hanging a couple of items from my online shop, an eco-printed silk dress and an eco-printed wool jacket. The jacket is vintage. It's a designer jacket, designed and made in Australia. So that's available under wearable on my website at gonerustic.com, and so is the silk dress. I have other items for sale there also if you'd like to have a look, including supplies. I think I have 2 pieces of fabric left, a piece of wool vintage blanket that I've eco-printed, and some silk gauze. There is also still some naturally dyed sari ribbon available. So I hope that you'll go and have a browse there as well and just see what I've been up to, and hopefully there'll be something that will suit you as well. A few videos ago, I mentioned that I was experimenting with some transfer artist paper. It comes in packets like this, and I did do a little bit of a demonstration in one of my videos earlier this year. One of the things that I did at the time was to use one of my drawings from a sketchbook that I made when I was doing a class with Kaz Holmes, I think. I often think that there are lots of ways we can use our art without actually destroying it. And what I did was I photocopied the drawing, which was of a dried protea. Then I printed that onto the transfer artist paper, and then the artist paper was ironed on to here and transferred the image onto the cloth. I chose to do this one on some eco-printed linen, and I'm actually going to use this for a journal cover. You can see I've already got a crease line there. So this is the journal that I'm going to cover, and it's not really big enough to wrap around it properly. So what I've decided to do is to offset it a little bit, like that. Maybe even a bit more. It's plenty big enough this way, but not this way. And then this lovely piece of eco-printed table napkin, I think it is, or maybe table runner, might be able to attach there with the lace exposed. I think it needs to go the other way. And then I'll have enough, because I'll need about that much more for a flap. And maybe I can also attach some to the back. So that way my artwork is featured on the front with my eco-printing, but also some eco-printing from someone who generously gave it to me. What am I using the sketchbook for? Well, it's been sitting empty for a long time, but now that Sketchbook Revival has begun, it is starting to get some work done in it. I only started yesterday. I've been watching the videos and really enjoying them, and one tutor in particular I really was inspired by, and that was Helen Wells. So I'm going to show you some of the work that I've done. I didn't start on the first page because I thought that way you're pressured to make something nice right at the start, whereas if you put it in the middle somewhere, you don't have to worry. The first exercise I did, which was with Helen Wells, was to just fill 2 pages with trees. Very simple drawings, just using any kind of media that you wanted to. I used a black outline pen with a not too thin a nib. I wanted something that had a bit of body. So this page I did guided by her through the video, but I added my own embellishments and my own decorations to some of the trees as well. And the next thing she said was to do another page, and with what you've learned and practiced on this page, create some new trees. So I did that, and it was just so much fun. I also did the second tutorial. She's done 2 tutorials on Sketchbook Revival. And with this one, we were encouraged to do some blobs of watercolour paint onto a page, just watered down and graded. I only have a very basic watercolour set that belonged to the children, so when they were young, and it doesn't have many colours, and I'm not sure, because it's a child set, what the quality would be. But I did have a lot of swatches that I'd done when we had our painting day with Sherry at our Stitching and Beyond group. So I thought I'm going to use those. And I cut out the swatches. They are just brush strokes, that's all they are. And the little code on the side explains what colours I've used. We experimented with making a mother colour, and one of the Sketchbook Revival tutors has made a free gift of working with mother colour. This one was mother colour plus yellow plus red, and all the variations that you get from that. This one is mother colour plus black plus yellow, and there's a whole sheaf of them on both sides of some of them, of the different colours that we did using the mother. That was my mother. We could mix our own mother colour, and then that was the basis for everything else that we did on these pages and for these swatches. I notice here as I open it that we've got some pencil that's transferred from this page onto here. I might actually put a piece of baking paper in between just to shield them from each other. So again, we followed the tree theme, and I just experimented with pencil, doing all sorts of shapes and designs on these swatches. Helen also did a watercolour wash in the background, but I've decided not to do that. I used these pretty much as they were, just as simple brush strokes. I used quite a wide brush. It was probably about 1 inch wide. These were also brushstroke swatches, but I used a spool of thread, the spool itself, to draw some circles on the back of each swatch and then use them as shapes for the trees. So I actually think that this is probably more free and organic. This is more structured, but there's a place for that, isn't there, for both of those? Probably because I had a precise shape, I was more precise with the drawing. And these colours were red and white plus mother colour, or red and white and black. These are earth paints. I'm trying to be as sustainable and eco-friendly as possible in my arts practice. So that was most enjoyable, and I would recommend Helen Wells to you as an artist if you do a search for her on the web, or if you have enrolled for Sketchbook Revival. Her 2 tutorials are available for free until the 28th of April. While we're talking about Sketchbook Revival, this is what the page looks like if you enroll. You have a welcome session that you can watch, a challenge schedule, so that tells you everything that's happening through the whole Sketchbook Revival time period, frequently asked questions as well, and then VIP access. When you join for free, as you watch each tutor, they also offer a free gift, as I do with my tutorial. If you do a paid membership, which is VIP access, you get another free gift, as well as unlimited access to all the tutorials. So this is what you see when you open the schedule page up. And I have watched most of these tutorials. If I couldn't watch them all, I just watched what I could. This was the one on creating trees with Helen Wells. And the next one I'm going to show you was one I did with Jane Davies. Just really enjoyed her tutorial. I also did one with another artist, with Valerie Sjoden, I think you pronounce it, and it was about drawing words to make them meaningful. So I'll just show you what I started with Jane Davies' tutorial. The good thing about her tutorial is that you can do it in 2 stages, or even more stages than that. What she wanted you to do was to go through your art materials, whether they're old drawings, artworks that didn't work, jelly prints, painted papers, anything like that, even magazine pages and so on, and cut them up and just collage 2 pieces onto a sketchbook page. And I thought that was such an interesting way to start. So my painted papers from a day with experimenting with paints, when I did the paint swatches, I also did a big sheet of lots of different mark making exercises that as a whole was really interesting, but also cutting it apart makes it even more interesting. So I cut bits out of it and arranged just 2 pieces on each page. I'll show you the others. She did 7, I think I've done 8. This was a photocopy of an exercise I did in a workshop years ago, painting shadows using India ink and different kinds of tools. So a wide brush, a stick, and I think a thinner brush as well. Just 2 shapes on each page. And because each piece of paper already has interest, you've already got a head start. And here I did 2 pages as well. I think that was it, wasn't it? So the next thing is to use other media to work into them and to add to them. And that could mean paint, it could mean pastels, graphite pencils, charcoal, all sorts of things. But I'm actually a little bit frightened to get started because I already like these as they are, but I really must not be too precious about them. I'm going to think about using some soft square pastels that I have, which I've not used at all, some drawing pencils, these charcoal pencils, which I've never used, and I also have some oil pastels. The other thing that I have is watercolour pencils, which I have used quite a lot When I open the tin, you can see that. That is something that I'm using in one of the other exercises, but I may use them in this exercise as well. So I would encourage you to go to the Sketchbook Revival page once you've enrolled. And if you're interested in these things that I'm doing, check out Jane Davies and Helen Wells. This is the exercise I did after watching Valerie Sjöden's video. I don't want to take the place of the tutorials. The tutorials are unique to the artists that prepared them. But the idea is that we take them and make them our own. So this is my interpretation using the word that I've chosen, which is trees. I wanted to choose something that was relevant to me. The word that Valerie chose to demonstrate was absolutely beautiful, and it really also resonated with me, and it was healing, just the word healing. And she did it in several different ways. She also researched the word, similar to how we've been approaching the Words 2026 project. But this was another way of interpreting a word. This was the first one that I did. And I thought, if I do a tree shape to stand for the letter T, and then put R, E, E, and S at the end of it, then I could embellish it. So I just did a very simple outline to begin with. Then I made some of the lines thicker and added detail to it. It is a bit busy, I think, but I've also coloured it with some watercolour pencils, these ones that I showed you. And I'm going to get some water and I'm going to paint those. That will really bring the colour out. Then I did this page. And without even really thinking about it, I realised I've actually told a bit of a story here. First of all, we have the trees, and I wanted to show the lushness and the health and the growth and the greenness of trees, and just the whole idea of health and growth in the landscape. This one is a different type of tree, but has a similar kind of idea, but expressed in a different way to this one. And then I thought about how trees are useful for wood. So this tree is dead. Even if it wasn't dead when it was cut down, of course it's dead once it's cut down. And the wood is used in beautiful ways for furniture and houses and all sorts of things. And I'm not criticizing that at all. I'm just showing it as it is. The other thing about it is that the tree has actually dropped some seeds. So the next generation will actually grow up in the space where this tree was. So it's not the end of the story. In Australia, we have a lot of trouble with bushfires. And around the world in the last year or two, particularly, there have been some really devastating fires in various countries. In California, in the US, for example, also on mainland Australia, parts of Europe. They have been devastating, and lives and property have been lost. So that's what this bottom one is about. It's just the stump of a tree. There are still flames, there is smoke, and everything is charred, including the ground. We had really serious bushfires here in 2006, and the bush was devastated, especially around St Mary's Pass, which is a reserve. And just to see what it looked like at the time was really, really depressing. But then over the months and years since then, the whole bush area has totally revived, and the Australian bush thrives on fire. The temperatures were so high, thousands of degrees, that there was a fear that nothing would grow back because the fires were intense. But they did, and that was so amazing. So even though this is in a way a sad story, there's also hope there, because the growth will come back. And I was just thinking about this where I've represented the seeds, and fire sometimes actually helps some of the seeds to germinate. Thank you to Valerie for demonstrating how words can become so much more than just the letters and the words themselves. The April Stitching and Beyond meeting, the Northeast group, met at my place last Monday, and I actually led an exercise in using the painted papers that we did with Sherry, another one of our members, to make a collage ready to print onto cloth. So the first exercise was a piece of cardboard, and I asked them to draw different shapes. So we did 2 vases, we did several flowers, we did leaves, a cup, some circles. That was another flower. It's supposed to be a bell-shaped flower, and that's another flower. Circles and a moon. And then we could choose any of those, and I suggested 3 to draw on the backs of our painted papers. By drawing them on the back, you couldn't actually see what was going to come out in the shape, and that really frees you up. So if you have a painted paper, you turn it over, draw your shapes on the back. These were the ones that I used. Cut them out, and then when you turn it over, you get a surprise. And these were what mine turned out like. I used different shapes as well to go with it. So I tore a strip of my painted paper. I also cut circles using a bowl as a template and a mixing bowl for the smaller one. And I realised after I cut it out that I really liked the outside shape as well, so that ended up being incorporated. And then I have my cup and my vase and my circle. The background is a photocopy of the shadow painting that I mentioned before. I didn't want to cut up the original. Then I printed it onto cloth. And you can see that the colours are not quite the same, but I'm still really, really happy with the result. So it was printed onto the transfer paper and then ironed face down onto the cloth. And that's why they are a reverse image, as you can see. This will be a springboard for stitching of some sort. It may even be that I will cut it up and reassemble it in a different way. I'm still thinking about that. But because it's on cloth, on a piece of cotton, it has got a little bit of thickness there, but that doesn't mean that I can't stitch through it. I have done it before and I know I can do it. And I so enjoyed that I thought I'd give it another go. This time I did it in reverse. I used the painted paper for the background and the shadow drawings for the foreground. And it's slightly different in composition as well. I did this one with the circles on the right. This one, the circles are on the left, and then that gets reversed, of course. And I did partial circle here with the cup in the middle, and I used the outside of the circle again here, and a different vase and a circle there. And then when I printed it onto cloth, this was the result. I had a little bit of trouble peeling the paper off once it had ironed on. So there's a few patches where it hasn't really stuck very well, and I had a lot of trouble with it. So I need to play around with temperatures, I think, and the length of time that I've ironed it. But again, still a very usable piece. So that was a great exercise to do. Everybody's results were different. I would like to do some more of this. I possibly will even be using some of the things in my sketchbook to use. Last week, I shared that I was exploring collaged backgrounds for my Words 2026 blocks. So they are featuring the words from each week. And my idea was to make blocks out of them, which are segments of a quilt, generally speaking, although mine is going to be a piece of textile art that can be hung on the wall. I really enjoyed making the collage background for my nailed piece, which I shared with you in the last video, and that led to my focus square being featured in a similar way on a collaged cloth background. And I just loved adding the embroidery because I already had something to work with, and I left a space for this and then stitched that on. Last week I showed you overflow as a work in progress, I think. It is now finished. I actually changed things around a bit because I realised the square was covering up this eco-printed linen here, which features some rose leaves. So it still shows through the embroidery, but if I'd put the block there, it would have covered that up. I had this as one single strip along the top, and I actually cut that and then stitched it in two bits here, and this piece I moved lower down and off to the right. I also had a paler piece of fabric in this area, and I had already done the overflow word and was starting the stitching, but the cloth I was using was so fragile that it tore. So what I did was I carefully undid some of the invisible basting and took it out, and then tucked in this piece of eco-dyed or eco-printed cotton, which was part of a piece that was given to me. And I like that much better. I think the darker colour also suits it better. So if you look at the last video, you will see that there are some differences. Once I'd finished overflow, I thought I would do another one. This one features my word from last week, which was underneath. And the square I made separately, of course. Then I collaged the background and placed the square on top. And I've used a variety of fabrics. I've used the same eco-printed linen as in the previous block, some eco-printed and dyed silk, it's vintage silk, a piece of green dyed cotton, which I think was done with native cherry, which grows here. It's in a symbiotic relationship with eucalypts. This was from my friend who passed away, and this was also given to me, I think, as part of the Red for Courage project. So it's really lovely to combine all these fabrics. Some are mine and some are from friends or people that I've got to know through YouTube and social media. And that makes it very special in itself. So now I'm just invisibly basting this square to the background, and then I'll start embellishing it with embroidery. And because I'm doing 4 blocks at least, I'm trying to make them cohesive without being the same. So you'll see that there are similarities, but they're also very different from each other. When I made my square for the word underneath, which I drew out of the pot last week, it took me a while to think of what to do. And in the end, I found a little piece of lace which was rust coloured, and it actually had some ferns in the design of the lace. And I thought, oh, maybe I could cut them out and put them on one of my collage backgrounds. I shared last week that I was feeling quite uninspired, so I did a lot of preparatory work which didn't take much thought. So I collaged several backgrounds for squares for the future weeks, and also collaged a couple of backgrounds for the blocks. And I had the idea of having something that showed through it. I had these triangles of indigo dyed cloth left over from the star blocks that I made as part of this whole series. And I really liked the way that shone through, very subtly really, and then I left the triangle shape also to just hint at the colour around the edges. Because it was already collaged, I already had a background, and that was really, really helpful. And I just did some feather stitch, some fly stitch with French knots, a few cross stitches in a similar blue to the indigo. And when I attached these, I used, I think it's a coral stitch, where you lay down a long stitch and then you catch it with a tiny stitch over the top. In a way, it's a bit like couching. Just a running stitch for the line down the middle, and then little fly stitches up here. The colours I've used are a cream pearl cotton, a lovely variegated eleganza thread, I haven't used this one for a while, but it really suited the colours in the ferns. So I used that for the feather stitch. For the ferns, on the fronds and the stems, I used these two colours. Actually, it was this way around. A gold yellow on that one and an orangey salmon colour on that one. And I also had this lovely silk pearl cotton. It's very thin. I'm not sure what weight it is, but it's not much thicker than machine sewing thread. And I used that for the little ferns here. There is the aqua thread. That's a stranded cotton, and I used 3 strands of that. These two are also stranded cotton, and I used 2 strands when I did the ferns. And you might wonder, what has this got to do with underneath? Well, apart from the layers being underneath the ferns, including the blue, which I designed to show through, this also made me think of the understory. We have quite a lot of forest on our land. Out of 21 acres, there's about 11 acres of forest. And the understory consists of a variety of plants. We have native ferns. One is called fishbone fern, another one is called coral fern. There may be others that I haven't seen, but they're the ones I've seen. We also have bracken fern, which is quite an endemic plant and is everywhere. And that often features in my eco-printing as well, all of those ferns. And then the other bits of stitching just resemble different plants that grow in the understory. So understory means underneath, under the trees, under the main growth of the area. We have a lot of eucalypts, banksias, native cherry, prickly box, acacias, and other trees, but underneath the trees is where the smaller plants grow. We also have a lot of bird life because it's a healthy environment, so the birds represent that. They're not part of the understory as such, although the understory is very important for them too, particularly for food, because of the little creatures that live in the understory. It's now time to choose the word for the week. It is week 16 of Words 2026. You can see that I have all the papers in there for the rest of the year. So I'm going to put the lid back on and I'm going to reach inside without looking and see what I can pull out this time. Making sure I have one piece. I can feel that I've got probably at least 2. So let's have a look. I think this should be quite inspirational. The word is scatter. I'm thinking on my feet here, but I can think of lots of ways to interpret this, even in an abstract way where you just scatter threads down or you scatter scraps of cloth over your background and stitch them where they fall. You could do that with other things too, like buttons or any kind of embellishment, maybe some strands of wool and then you couch them down as they are. So the act of scattering, of course, means to just spread them around without thinking too much. It could be to do with scattering seed. It could be to do with the scattering that happens when your grocery bag breaks. And that can be a bit of an issue, especially if things are breakable. It could be a scattering of leaves in autumn. We're heading into winter now, but we still have autumn colours, of course. And the leaves are scattered around by the wind. So lots of possibilities with that one. I hope you have a lot of fun with this, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you come up with. I noticed that our numbers have gone down quite a lot since the start. Very enthusiastic start, and it's tapered down. But I'm hoping that you will persist with it and that you won't give up. because you'll have a beautiful body of work by the time you're finished, which could be springboards for other work or be incorporated into new work. So it's really well worth persisting with it, and it's a good learning experience as well. Some of us have English as a second language, and that's been a challenge also to understand the meanings of the words, especially the more obscure ones. This one I hope is simpler, and we'll see what you can do with it. I started. Got it. You did. Yep, you did.